And so now we move to our third panel for the day. And we're looking at marketing, PR, and publicity. So it's the marketing, publicity, and PR imperative. That's the actual topic. As usual, we have heavyweights for you. We have Venus Rose, Chrislyn Lashington, Crystal Cunningham, who is our host. We have Francois Blanchette, David Rowland, and we have Orville Shaggy Burrell. Did he leave the room? Can someone go and get our chairman, please? Chairman. So we're bringing to the stage Venus Rose. We're bringing David Rowland. Not that end. Francois. Chrislyn Lashington. Our host is Crystal Cunningham.
Thanks, Judith. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. We're so happy to see so many of you here for the PR and marketing conversation with all our experts in the industry. As Judith said, I'm Crystal. So I'll just allow my guests to introduce themselves so that you know who you're having this conversation with this afternoon. Venus, we're going to start with you.
Are you testing? Okay. So, hi, I'm Venus. House of Creators is my agency. We specialize in digital marketing and creative production. And we help artists and different brands build their brand identity and create content to connect future and current audiences. We work with a lot of talent like Playboy Cardi, Rich the Kid, Famous Dex, CK, Central C, Rico Nasty, DaBaby, Little Durk, Duty Low, a variety of, am I still on? Okay, yeah, sorry. So a variety of like the new generation talent. That's what we specialize in.
Nice. Roland?
Hi, I'm David Rowland. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a journalist. I'm a music writer. I write for freelance for the last 10 years for Miami New Times. And I also edit the South Florida blog, jitneybooks.com.
Thank you. Francois?
Hi, my name is Francois Blanchette. I am the founder of MCM PR, which is a boutique public relations firm. We started out doing entertainment, working with a lot of recording artists, but have now branched on to branded, integrated campaigns, tech, and now cannabis.
Great, thank you. And finally, Chrislyn?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Chrislyn Lashington, or Missy Chrissy from Grenada. I run a marketing, communications, and entertainment agency, Lashington Agency. I'm also a creative entrepreneur. I grew up on stage. I play music as well as dance. I'm a dance fitness instructor, TV and radio producer and host, and so happy to be here at the Island Music Conference.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm Crystal Cunningham. I also have my own boutique PR, public relations, and media tour agency in Trinidad and Tobago. So the first question we want to get off today is the differentiation between PR and marketing, because we know there's often an overlap and confusion. So could we help our artists differentiate and also understand the importance of having both? Who's going to take that one? Define PR for us.
You do both, so you gotta go.
Sure. Okay, so public relations is largely about making sure that your image is out there. It's all about managing your image. And it involves a whole host of strategies really for that main purpose. Marketing is really promoting selling. This is where you're selling your music, you're selling your event, or whatever it has to do with. So I think those are, simply put, the difference between the two.
And the importance of having each as part of your team and your strategy. So having someone to assist you with PR and marketing. Francois, you want to tackle that one?
Repeat the question.
The
Sorry.
importance of having PR and marketing, because oftentimes artists would have their manager,
Right.
handle everything related to marketing and PR. And oftentimes, a lot of the artists, especially the up-and-coming artists, their managers would usually be one of their friends or
Right.
someone who is working with them on the team, and they themselves, the managers, don't even know that they need a separation or someone to assist them with both PR and marketing. So the importance of having both, and then also how they work hand in hand.
Right. Well, PR is mainly about managing how people see and feel you, the brand and product. And the manager's role is basically to oversee all of that, to oversee all of the team players. And sometimes when you start off small, you're all hands on deck, and you have a small team, and then your manager will probably be in charge of some of that. But as you grow, it's very important to have a publicist handle that specifically, because they have the contacts, they have the strategy, they know how to manage a rollout, a proper rollout, which is something that I struggle with, especially working with the island artists, is a proper rollout of an album or even a song. I know the culture here sometimes is to drop singles, just drop it without a proper plan. And if you want to have sometimes people get lucky, but if you want to have that global reach, you have to have a proper PR rollout. And I think a publicist has the expertise to do that for sure.
Yeah, and Venus, you mentioned that you work with a lot of the new generation of artists, and we have a lot of new generation of artists coming up in the Caribbean, and of course here for the last couple of days. So any advice you want to give those new generation of artists? They don't have a big team, as Francois would have mentioned, but you have to get the PR, you have to get the marketing. So any tips or advice you can give them to be able to execute that successfully and still make a bang or have a great impact?
Yeah, I would say for advice, definitely focus on what your brand identity is and your demographic. I really feel like there are many artists with great music, but if you don't have the proper team to expose it to the world, no one will ever hear it. So I think, PR and marketing is very critical in, building fan base, developing the audience portion. You don't want to just constantly create music and nobody hear it. I know a lot of artists lead into depression over the years when no one's hearing it. They're not getting no press, no media, and they're constantly dropping great music.
So then how do you get people to hear your music? Because backstage, we were talking with Judith, and she mentioned that we had some heavyweight names. And you go to other countries, they don't even know who a Bob Marley is. They don't even know who a Shaggy or Sean Paul is. And we think that, yes, you're big here in Jamaica, but outside of Jamaica, you are not. So then how do you get that conversation? And I'm going to link this to, obviously, having the press contacts and the media contacts. So David, could you tell us how important is it to have those press contacts, one, and then if you don't have the press contacts, then how do you initiate that relationship with the media?
Yeah, so every day, pretty much, I get like 10, 20 spam emails. Check out my artist, check out my artist. A lot of times they're from publicists, but sometimes they're independent artists. The musician, the producer, they reach out to me themselves. And I look for two things, pretty much. Sometimes I just accidentally delete it, so that can happen too. So you might as well send it to everyone. But sometimes I'll check it out, and the two things I look for is the music good? And two, do they have an interesting story? And sometimes if they have an interesting story and the music is bad, I'll still write about them. And sometimes the music is great and they're a nerd that never leaves their room, I'll write about them. But if you have both, then that's two strikes going in your favor.
Yeah, and that interesting story obviously will go back to your publicist.
Right.
So then you see the need to have that publicist or the PR person to be telling that story. So I'm sure there are artists in the room here this evening. How many of you have actually sent emails to the Jamaica Observer or the Gleaner, or use an email blast to actually send your music out when it just comes out? Do any of you use that strategy? And do you get hits back from the reporters or from the journalists? And how many times have that converted into an actual publication about your music? Okay, so it works.
Yeah,
right?
but sometimes you have to use the power of social media. I mean, things are changing now. Even as a publicist, I wake up to 100 emails, but my direct messaging, I answer those more.
Okay.
I answer those faster.
So I guess you have to kind of like build a relationship with
Build
the
a
various
relationship.
media houses
Yeah.
to find out which strategy works one, because like you said, you respond to DM. Some people might respond to email. But of course, the artist is not doing this. You have to have someone on your team following up and doing these things. So what are some of the tips and advice you would give to get that story communicated so that every time the music drops or a single drops, then, you know, it's in their faces?
I mean, I think it's also about building relationships. I mean, sometimes it might not be the first hit, but if you're building a relationship, by the fourth or the fifth conversation, you're inviting them to the show. Even here, when we invited media, it's like no pressure. We want to build relationships with you. You can come here, you don't have to write a story, but you might come out, you might leave here with an idea. You might come back next year and say, you know, I want to bring my whole team here. So I think it's really important to say, no, this might not be a hit right now, but to really garner those relationships and keep letting them know every time you have something out, keep updating them. And sometimes one of those are going to hit, for sure.
I would like to add in that process, going back to understanding your demographic, you have to know what publications to contact fits your genre, because you don't want to be a pop star and you're reaching out to the source. You know, you would want to reach out to like a paper. So yeah, just definitely understand your demographic and fan base, and then align yourself with the right publications.
And if I can add, I love that you mentioned what your story is, because it's so important as an artist to have, in terms of your brand, know exactly who you are. What you believe in is also really important, because sometimes that's where the story is for the media people. And when people come to the agency and we're trying to pitch it, a lot of the times the media, they're not really interested in just a song being released. They need an angle. So for instance, if you think about Queen Ifrica, I know she was here at the conference. If you're doing anything in relation to ending violence towards women and children, you know that she is the person to go to, because she's created her brand around that. So a lot of the times that could be the spin, and then at the end of it, oh, she's dropping this song on, you know, February the whatever. And you'd see a lot of the publications do it too. They might talk about your outfit or something you mentioned at a conference, and then at the end of it, it's go check out my song. So I think having that story is really important, and I love that you mentioned relationships. Finding a publicist who has relationships with the media, right? And also maintaining those relationships. For instance, I do an event on Carnival Sunday in Grenada called Beach Bum. And even though it's a carnival event, what I will do is invite those media partners who supported me over the last year. Say, hey, here's 2 tickets, come with your man and have a good time. You know, so it's those types of things to kind of make sure that when I come with a story for TJ, you know, I work with Sharon a lot, they're more likely to publish it because they know I treat them well, and you know.
So we are buttering up the media. That's
not
something.
buttering.
But it works, though. I mean, so we're going to touch on that, because how important is it to? We're not talking about bribery, but we're talking about treating people with respect and recognizing how they've assisted you by also giving back to them. So how important is that? And not just when you have a record, oh, well, let me reach out to this let me reach out to this media house and see, they're not going to pay you attention. But, you know, massaging that relationship, like you said, how important is that?
That's very important. That's the key. But I wanted to add something else for the last question. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. I also wanted to add something to the last question. It's not, sometimes people reach too high, you know, and they don't build relationships with the bloggers, things that help with your Google power, things that help with your presence on social media. So there are a lot of outlets out there that are not Vogue, that are not Rolling Stone, but they have a certain amount of following that people in that genre respect. And you need to reach out to them, because they're actually more, they have they're more open to listening to emerging artists.
And sometimes they have higher engagement.
Yeah,
So
sure.
some of the outlets you can reach out to if you want to recap. You don't have to reach out to, of course, there's mainstream radio, TV, news outlets, but you can also reach out to the online blogs, even
Yes.
influencers too, because I mean, that's where it's at right now. Your PR person will be very helpful in placing your music
Right.
with certain elements within these media houses because there's subliminal, I don't want to say brainwashing, but there's subliminal ways to
Right.
make your music connect and communicate. So the advertising agencies, even the brands reaching out to some of, like Venus mentioned, you're not going to, if you're, depending on the type of music, you're not going to reach out to a bank if you know you're more if your music doesn't fit that demographic.
Exactly.
But of course, you can reach out to the advertising agencies. So there's so many avenues to make your music connect now and not just relying on traditional mainstream. There's a perfect example of that with the Trinidad movement in Trinidad. Because of the vulgarity of their music, it did not get any radio airplay, but their music is now bigger than soca to some extent because they took their music to the ground, to the people. So the people demanded the music. They had all these millions of views and streams on YouTube, which then forced the radio stations and the mainstream media to actually play their music on radio, clean versions, of course. But it just goes to show that there are other ways. If you don't feel like the radio stations or the mainstream radio stations or television stations are not playing your music or the music videos, as Francois said, there are couple of other outlets that you can reach out to that can still give you that same impact and reach. But I just want to take the conversation on the flip side in terms of how PR can definitely help your brand, especially if you have a crisis. Because oftentimes a lot of artists don't see the need to have a publicist until they have a crisis to repair their image from. So let's speak about how public relations can definitely help you repair a hurt image or a damaged image. Let's just say if an artist was involved in a scandal.
It's me again? Okay. I think it's you. Oh, wow. I mean, we can't really repeat what we do behind the scenes, but definitely having a publicist who has a plethora of contacts in all areas, from criminal lawyers to having relationships with reporters to tell them sometimes it's horrible to say, hey, can you please not put that story up?
Yeah.
I'll give you another story, or I'll give you access to something else later, or
Or could you put a different angle on this
give a
story?
different angle.
Or
And
leave out this information?
Right. And sometimes we'll substitute something positive. So if something negative's out, a story that we were holding for another week, we'll push it out right away, so then all you see is the positive. So there's a lot of tricks there, but it really is about relationships your publicist will have with all these outside parties that will kind of fix things behind the scenes so that the public doesn't see it or it's overshadowed the next day. As well as there's different instances where you don't speak and you have to speak. Well, there'll be instances where you have to speak for yourself will be good, and then sometimes you have to be quiet and let the next news big thing come out tomorrow that will kind of overshadow that.
Yeah, and I would add too, sometimes as a publicist, you can prep the interviewer before, talking to the artist so they don't ask certain questions.
Yeah.
Which they rarely do.
Yeah,
So- No, well-
that makes me want to ask it.
Well, for managers, I think that's important. Don't ever send your artist into an interview just like that. At least reach out to the media house and can I request a list of questions that you would like to potentially ask the artist. And if the artist recently had a scandal or a controversial situation, you let the media house know, I don't want you to touch on
You
that.
also have to know what outlet you're speaking to.
Yeah.
So if you had a scandal, I wouldn't have an interview the next day for TMZ.
No,
because
they're
they're
gonna
going to ask the
magnify it.
right questions,
Yeah.
right? So you have to pick the relationship or the outlet that you know is going to actually respect,
Yeah, and then
those
some
questions.
media houses, they will still sneak that question
They'll try
in.
to.
So your artist also has to be prepared, which is the job of the publicist again, to prepare the artist to be able to tackle this question from different angles, let's just say, if it does come up. So internally, you have to always have prepared responses depending on whatever you are doing, whether it's a scandal, launching an album, launching a single, or even making an appearance. And speaking about launching an album, we know there are lots of artists here who probably are preparing to launch music, and you touch on that some of them, they drop singles, but let's just say they want to make a difference or a change in how they're releasing their next single. Can you give them some advice from a PR perspective? What are some of the things they can do to have a different impact, to obviously tap into the market in a different way that they probably have not before?
Well, I think obviously a proper rollout. But before, you were mentioning something about relationship building with media, and I think it's very important. I've worked with artists in America, in the UK, and obviously in the islands. And what I find with working with some of the younger artists in the islands is that they want the media, but they think they're too cool for it at the same time.
Yes.
Can I be candid about that? And so I'll have somebody and I'm like, wow, you're in Vogue, you're in this, and they'll love it, but they won't post it. They won't repost it.
Yeah.
Or they don't respect it. And I'm just like, you don't understand. That reporter is looking for you. That journalist is looking for you to repost it to show that you liked the article and you loved it. And I know it's too cool sometimes to post media because you want your social media page to be curated a certain way, but you have to step out of that coolness and realize this person has global reach, it's expounding, and then now that you have a relationship with them, they might have more opportunities for you.
Yep.
But another thing is what a proper rollout is actually being strategic about when you're putting music out. And I know some genres of music just like, okay, I have this single, I'm gonna put it out, I'm gonna see what the streets think about it. And that works sometimes, but sometimes you have to say, okay, this is what I want. I want it to have global reach. I want to align myself with certain media outlets, so we have to have a plan. So we're gonna have this partner with our album release. We're gonna have this with the single. We're gonna put a blast out to let everybody know that the video is coming out the next day. So these little things are just to plan so that you don't drop things actually helps with the exposure of the album or the single.
That's a good point too, if I can jump in, about sharing the articles, because I personally, as the writer, I don't care, but my employers do care about the hits that the articles get. And so let's say Shaggy here, for instance, I interview him, or maybe an up-and-coming artist. Let's say I interview him and they don't share, and then all of a sudden they come back, hey, I've got a new album out. A year passes, I got a new album out, and my editor will decline the article because nobody read the last one. So it's always good if you do get publicity, if you do get a write-up, it's always good to let everyone in your community know about it.
I would like to add to, as far as like a rollout to create some type of edge to it, I like to tap into fashion. So like I like to bring in elements of, let's see how we can make them go viral on social media with their style. Let's do some fashion spreads just to, add to the press.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, I think also people fall in love with you as a person. They want to know, what do you do on Saturday? What do you do on Sunday? So when I'm working with the artists, I like to dissect their life. So I'm like, if you're cooking, let's figure out some cooking content.
Yes.
Let's attach that. If you hang out with your son on the weekends, people are like, oh my God, I love it. I think when Megan Thee Stallion came out, people fell in love with her dog, and she got a lot of dog fans because they love that French bull. But you just never know where you're going to gain fans from, so it's good to dissect your life and figure out how you can amplify or maximize anything into an opportunity, as well as doing your music.
Definitely, agreed. I'd say also too, when you're thinking of rolling out a brand new song, some actual tactics that we use with some of our artists and entertainers is you want to make sure there's a story, like you said, and that story is documented in an actual press release. Yeah. So you have a little blurb about your song, the story behind the song, the people behind the song, who's the producer, etc. Graphic design, right? That's so important in this day and age. It's all about imagery. So you have a nice graphic that goes along with your song, whether it's an animation as well. You make sure that all the uploads to all the DSPs and YouTube is in sync. So you have a clear image and your branding across all channels as it relates to the song. You schedule everything. So don't just think, okay, the song dropping today, everything just goes. No, we have a schedule that we need to work with for us to prep the media, for us to make sure we schedule your media appearances. All those things need to be done. Figuring out what the social media spin is, whether it's like the fashion, the viral element. I worked with an artist one time, and he dropped a photo of him proposing to a woman. And everybody was shocked because it was believable that he was actually proposing to her, but it was a fake proposal, and it had to do with the music video. So the entire storyline fit. So it's important to sit with your PR person and your marketing person, if they are two separate people, and come up with that entire campaign to make sure that you have everything representing your brand and your image throughout.
And once you have that relationship with the media, when your storyline is in place, then you can also schedule your media interviews to be timed, or your releases to come out. So that way you impact radio, you impact television, you impact the print media as well. And very important, I also think that it's also good to keep your image up to date. So every 6 months you do a photo shoot and you have important images, because oftentimes the media house may ask for a photo and you don't have an up-to-date photo, or even if you want to do a fashion article, and it's easy sometimes to get a placement if you already have photos that the fashion magazine, of course, cleared once you have the photo release. But it's easy sometimes to get that placement if you already have high-res photos in your arsenal, so that way the reporter doesn't have to search too hard to get a modern photo of you, and likewise the fashion journalists or the fashion editors. So just doing up-to-date photos in your press releases, yes. But also, most importantly, I find a lot of our Caribbean artists, we lack EPKs. I'm not sure if you guys know what an EPK is, but you must have an electronic press kit. Electronic press kit, yeah, I'm gonna say that again. So your electronic press kit is not just only going to have information about you, but it also has your discography, so all your music, your recent releases, your music videos, and then a link that those people can tap into and get photos of you as well. And when you have send out your new music, you also include your EPK in that new music. When you release new music, how many of you actually send it outside of Jamaica? That's also very important. There are a lot of media houses. I'm from Trinidad. My girl out there is from Grenada. So you may not send it to the US, but there are other islands. I work with some guys from Tough Gong. They always send me the Mali stuff in Trinidad, and I send it directly to the radio stations that I work with. And they always send it because they were like, oh my God, the song is actually playing. I'm like, yeah, because I sent it, like, why not? So you have to get relationships in the other islands, because with TikTok and social media, everybody's music is global. Everybody's music is trending. But of course, the reason why you have some soca music that trends in Jamaica is because their team would have sent it to the DJs and the radio stations here. So you have to get into that habit as well of developing your EPK and your music and sending it out to other islands in the Caribbean region. So do you guys have any questions for the panel? Because I know we're going to be pressed on time here for today, so before Judith comes out here to tell us, it's time to wrap up. And we know you guys would have pressing questions, so let's get your questions in at this time.
Thank you so much to all of the panelists for sharing. Just a quick question. I know it's a very subjective thing, but I wondered if you could offer any guidance as to how artists or management teams should approach difficult communications. So when I mean difficult, I'm saying when there are two dialogues and you perhaps have your version and another version of the story is already circulating. When do you leave something and when do you respond? Because responding can sometimes breathe life into something that you don't want to. Of course, this is subjective, but I'm just wondering, do you have a measure? Do you have a tool that you say? Back in the days, people used to say there's no news as bad news, but I don't think that's really accurate. I'm wondering if you can offer any guidance as to how you approach it or advise people to approach this.
Well, I mean, that's obviously people think all publicity is good publicity, but I do think if it's damaging, your money, your branding, and your fans are severely offended, there has to be something, some type of response to it. What that response is just depending on the situation and your team strategizing what the best response is. Sometimes no response is needed for things that are just can be covered up the next day, or just basic rumors that can, we can follow up. And sometimes you want to maximize that opportunity. Why would I want to talk about it now if I don't have an album or a single or anything coming out? So maybe you want to save all that stuff for when you're actually having a project out and you want to address those issues then. It helps with the publicity then.
Yeah, because not everything requires a response. You personally might be boiling over on the inside,
Right.
but that's where your team comes in to give you that support and motivation. And then also you yourself have to sometimes sit back and internalize that maybe it might just be big in my mind,
Right.
but it's not necessarily big out there. So your team can do a quick search of Instagram and once you know, you see the responses, you
Yeah.
see the comments, and you see that this is not going away, then that might be a good time to tap into your team or tap into a mentor or someone that you have a lot of respect for, and you ask that person, or even your pastor, let's just say you don't have a team, tap into someone who you have a lot of respect for and ask them, do you think I need to provide a response to this? And sometimes in a couple of hours, really, if you don't give something attention, I don't know how it is here in Jamaica, but sometimes in Trinidad, the next thing happens and you're forgotten.
Right.
So sometimes it's good to wait. Sometimes the waiting approach is the best approach depending on the nature of the situation. Of course, if it's something legal, then you definitely seek legal advice, and you let that, depending on the magnitude of the situation, you let that attorney or law enforcement person guide you on how you respond to the situation. Any other questions?
Yes. How's everybody doing? My name is DJ International Wig.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, could you hear me?
Yes.
All right, my name is DJ International Wig. I'm a DJ out of Florida. I'm also a producer. I produce for various artists in the industry. And I know the importance of PR and PR work. One of the things that I want to ask you guys is, how important is it for an artist to present themselves on social media, especially when you're representing the artist? Do you think that artists should implement, because a lot of people have guns, drugs, stuff of that nature, maybe nudity, maybe things that might offend other people? How effective is that for you guys in your industry, especially representing an artist and their brand? Is that something that an artist should do? And how could that affect their careers? Because a lot of the record labels back in the early 2000s and before, they used to have artist development, and they used to teach artists, don't do certain things. Now, because of social media, it's an open playing field. So a lot of people can be, just all over the place with representing themselves. Do you guys feel that artists should be kind of mindful of what they're doing on social media, especially if they're getting representation from PR?
Well, I know just from the media viewpoint, they don't, I've never had an editor say, I can't write that story because someone's doing something outrageous. And what they will say is they don't have enough Instagram followers. We can't write about them. I remember there was an artist put out a great album and they've got like 200 followers. But then there's someone like, you're from Florida, you said, you remember Stitches? New Times wrote a great story. I didn't write it, but a writer wrote this great story about him because he had all these scandals out about him. They wrote this great profile story, and it got a huge amount of coverage. He became a phenomenon for like a week. So they might differentiate from what I'm saying, that there's no such thing as bad publicity, but it seems like a lot of media outlets enjoy writing things about bad publicity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but it depends on what your goal is as well. It's like if you just want to make money off of shows, then that's fine. Just, whatever your brand is. But if you want to go into have partnerships with brands and get into other opportunities, those things might hinder you.
Yeah, I'll add, like, I've worked with some artists and I've connected them with brands, but the brands would go on their social media page and see guns and lean, and they wouldn't want to work with them. So I think it's very important what you post, and also to always remember, what you post on the internet is going to be on the internet forever. Correct. You may grow and evolve into another person, so be very mindful.
And yesterday, I think we had this conversation with the social media where you become famous and then somebody pulls up one of your tweets from 15, 20 years ago. So at the end of the day, it's an individual choice. That's just my personal view about it, if that's the direction the artist wants to go. And if I am hired to work with that artist in a certain capacity, I can only give my advice. At the end of the day, it's still a client relationship. I can advise them, okay, if your idea or development is to get endorsements, you have to know that certain companies are not going to want to work with you if you are more or less showing that you align with certain values that they don't align with. So most brands have their corporate responsibility, they have their corporate vision, their corporate goals. You as an artist, you may see, oh, well, artist A, he got this endorsement, but you're not artist A, and you probably don't share artist A's values. So you have to know what your values are, you have to know what you stand for, and whether there are companies that are going to align with your vision. If they don't align with your vision, then you're not going to get that endorsement. So it's all about your beliefs and what you want for your brand, if you even think down that road. So to answer your question, it all depends on what plans you have for yourself. If your vision for the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. And if you don't have that plan, then it's going to be very difficult for other brands or even record labels to work with you.
For everybody watching, can you advise us on how an artist team would go about choosing a publicist? What are they looking for?
Francois.
Oh, okay. When you're looking for a publicist, I mean, it depends on what stage you're in. If you are up and coming and your budget isn't small, maybe you have someone on your team that's just looking for people to support your. Is my mic on? I'm sorry. It really depends on what level you're in, right? I think obviously you want a publicist that has the most access. You want publicists to have access in the music outlets. But if you're into other things, you want a publicist to have access in all the areas that you want to dive into. I'm working with an artist right now who has his own label, and he's also getting into having his own brands. So he wants me to be able to create relationships with him to give him exposure on his branding opportunities, his brand opportunities, as well as showing him as a boss. And I'm not just a rapper anymore, I'm a president, I'm a label, I have other artists. And so it depends on what your goal is to look for, to decide what kind of publicist you want to select. But I think in the beginning, you just want somebody that's going to ride with you, that's going to believe in your music and reach out to the outlets no matter whatever, even if they're cold calling or if they have the personal access, they have their personal access to be able to do all those things and believe in you for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because sometimes you can reach out to someone you were referred to by another artist. This publicist is working with this artist, and you'll be like, oh, well, I want to work with Francois because she did this for this artist, and he really took off. But that may not be your experience. So I will say what not to do. Do not choose someone based on somebody else's success, because their success is not your success. Their journey is not your journey. Your journey is the work that you put into your brand and your development. So choose someone who will be invested in developing you and that genuinely likes your music and genuinely likes you as a person.
Yeah.
Because if the person likes you as a person, they can take anything that you do and make it into a story.
Yeah,
So
sometimes people want to go to a bigger agency. I mean, I have a boutique agency, but I give a lot of personal attention to my clients. And sometimes people are like, oh, I want to go to this bigger agency.
And then they go there and then they're not happy because they're lost.
They're not paying attention to you. You're like a small fish in the pond. So you have to have somebody that actually just really believes in you and wants to work with you. Because there are bigger agencies that will find somebody like, I like you, I want to help build with you, but that's...
And cares enough to want to go the extra mile to make sure that your music connects to the right channels, hits the right reporters, connects with the right brands to help carry that conversation.
So I'm standing because I'm taking Shaggy's advice, and I do marketing, PR, and publicity. I'm Colleen. Should I tell them my number, Judy?
Yeah.
But I have when we look at marketing, publicity, and PR imperative, from the public relations, professional marketing, publicist perspective, what I find particularly hard in the island is investment in this area. It's perhaps one of the least valued
It is. Say that again.
So my challenge is for artists to consider it. You know, like I'll say, I've worked with artists. I say, "Me not come on stage, go and sing a song for you. Why you tell me what to do my work?" Because they want. I hope you understand Jamaican, yeah.
Yeah, we
But
got you.
I wanted to know your experiences from your own space with how you maintain your value in terms of pricing. Ones will call you, how much do you take to write 500 words? How much do you charge to send out a press release? And so I'd really love to know, as a professional in the area, how you manage to maintain your price value and give value to the clients.
It's so funny because we were having that conversation backstage with the Crystalline being from Grenada, which is a much smaller island. And then I'm from Trinidad, which, I mean, we're small, but we're definitely not as big as Jamaica. And I think it's a common issue whereby artists, one, they do not respect the need to have marketing and PR. And then if you have someone functioning in that role, they're usually doing everything without understanding. Sorry?
No. I just wanted to hear
From everyone?
everyone's
Okay.
perspective on
No problem. So oftentimes they think that this role is a role that's fulfilled by one person and each is its own job. So each one does require a separate compensation. So I do have that similar struggle. But how I combat it is that I just don't work with any and everyone. So if you do not respect my price, and I don't advertise, you will never go online and find my business, or you will never find a website or social media. All my clients are from referrals. So if someone referred you to me, then you know that my work is good and I stand by myself. And if I do work with you, it's because I'm working exclusively with you. I do not take on more than one client, so that when I do submit my price, then my price is respected. So there are some agencies that have multiple clients, like the bigger agencies. So you can have a boutique agency and work with a few core clients, and you have short-term clients, so that way it opens you up to move on to other clients, and that way you're able to charge your price. And if someone doesn't want to work with you, then, I mean, it's up to you if you want to discount or not, but I generally just decline to just not work with that person. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I love that you asked that question, because it happens in the entertainment industry, but even when I worked in corporate, in marketing and corporate communications roles, you're constantly fighting with management for your marketing budget. It is always an issue, regardless. Like, it's always, people don't respect marketing as much, and it is a constant fight, but it's something that is very important. You can have the best song, but if no one is hearing it, you're not gonna make the dollars off of that song. You need to have more eyeballs on whatever it is you're creating in order to make more money, in order to be comfortable as a creative in the space. And I love what you said. Sometimes the answer is simply no. I'm so sorry, this is my price, and I'm not able to work with anything other than that. Or sometimes you recognize there's value in the relationship, and you say, okay, how can you meet me, right? And then you work out some sort of arrangement. For instance, like I said, I do events, I do TV shows, so you may not be able to pay me the $500, but you might be able to pay me $200 and then, or nothing, and I get you to perform in one of my events for free. You know what I mean? So sometimes we do barter. In the Caribbean, that's just what happens sometimes, yeah.
How do you guys deal with that on the international market?
I mean, I definitely lower my rates depending on the market, because I know in the U.S. there's just more, they have more bigger budgets to be able to pay me. And if I believe in the artist, I'm definitely going to lower my rate. With though, the note that I actually grew with an artist who got signed, and the label actually paid me a higher budget when they got signed. So if I really believe, I know that there's going to be an end goal and we can grow together, for sure. But I have to believe in the music first.
And Venus, have you ever had any situations like that where you would have had to someone is negotiating with your price or your agency's rates?
Yeah, I definitely adjust the rate depending on the client, but also I feel like I offer something very unique that a lot of artists can't find in other places. I've had experiences where artists have come to me looking for what I specifically offer, and they didn't like the budget, so they'll go to somewhere else, and then they'll always come back because the other person just wasn't giving. I'm sorry, what did you say?
What do you offer?
Oh, see, mine is really brand development, like identifying the brand, identifying, the image, the visual aspect, the creative aspect, and so with my marketing, I bring my creativity. So you get, it's not just straightforward marketing. You get styling and you get production. It's like a one-stop shop.
And it's very important because sometimes people will like you off your look.
Yes,
You know.
absolutely, yeah.
And the look is very important. I mean, at the
important.
end of the day, it's a superficial industry. That's just what it
very-
is.
Yeah.
So I think what Venus is saying is that her mind would flesh out an idea that you probably wouldn't normally see. Or if you just go to a mass agency, there's going to be like, oh, you want marketing? We're going to give you a generic marketing package. Whereas she may
Right.
customize the solution, like say, okay, you have this new song, we're probably going to use some AR technology and use that to market your song. And I think Adam touched on, well, we were having a conversation with Adam before, something similar, whereby when Cass dropped one of his songs during the pandemic, the reason that became big is they did a TikTok challenge. And usually sometimes, depending on what you do, that marketing strategy, what Venus is saying is, anyone can write a press release for you. Anyone can say, well, okay, let's reach out to Miami New Times and get a feature story for you. Which, yes, it hits the market, but is anyone really listening to your record? Is anyone really messing with your record, streaming your record? Because the stream is where it counts. So how do you get people to stream your records? It's getting those out-of-the-box strategies that will make a difference so that people can connect with your music and just, when they connect with that song, oftentimes they will check out your other records on YouTube or iTunes and stream your other music, because that's what it boils down to at the end of the day. You want those streams so that you can make that money, right?
Yeah, and I feel like I came in a time where fashion was just, so prevalent. I would say like, the A$AP Rocky era. Like A$AP Rocky is a great example, and then his artist Playboi Carti is the face of Givenchy. So it's like I incorporate that. Like most artists now want to be on the runway. So I use the fashion aspect of, to the marketing.
So that's just one different way that you can use publicity to hit the markets in a different realm. So are there any other suggestions you want to give the artists here in Jamaica that they can use? So apart from approaching the fashion houses, any other things that they can try?
Yeah, I would definitely say, try to get with commercial and fashion agencies. Like, add that to your portfolio. Don't just be a music artist. Like, try to get into lookbooks with brands. Try to be the face of lookbooks. Try to find different avenues, to go viral on Instagram or Twitter. Like, the visual aspect is so prominent right now. Like, take advantage of that. Think outside of the box. Create unique content.
Do you have a mic?
Yeah, I need a mic.
We're going to get to your mic. I'll add to what you were saying. I think community is so important as well, especially in the Caribbean context where, media, we have social media, we have traditional media, but don't forget the tangible interactions with people in your community. For instance, doing school visits is huge in Grenada for us. I know it's huge in Trinidad as well.
They are.
It makes a big difference in terms of reaching audiences, and the most important thing when you're marketing or promoting what you have is continuously putting yourself in different platforms. So if you're constantly just posting on your own social media, you're not really going to expand your fan base as much. as going to a conference or going to a school or doing something with a children's home, or finding those types of intangible connections as well, I think is really important to building your brand and expanding your fan base.
Or just giving back, starting a foundation or finding a foundation that you can contribute meaningful towards. Now, we're not saying to partner with these just so that you can get publicity. Do something that you also have a passion for. Some of you come from communities, well, what we call at home, at-risk communities that are known for violence and gang. If you come from an area like that and you were able to come out of the area, it means a lot when you go back to those communities and just let the kids know that, hey, I came from this and I amounted to this. So it doesn't even matter if you finished school, you graduated from college or university, if you are focused on getting something done and you can have those type of conversations with those children, it would definitely mean a lot to them, and it certainly would make news, especially if you're producing an album, and that's where your publicists come in. They know how to take all of those things, and whatever you do, write a story about it, get it to people like Roland here, so that they talk about the community service, but at the same time, they plug the music in that article as well. Any other questions? Yeah.
We have to wrap with
Lady in
questions
yellow.
right now. We have to wrap with questions.
We could take one more?
No.
Okay. But thank you so much, everyone. We want to say thank you. Give our panel a round of applause.